This effect underscores the importance of understanding how cognitive biases can shape our perceptions and behaviors, particularly in the context of critical global issues such as climate change.
My name is Sean McNutt, and I'm a guy with AI.
Hello, and welcome to A Guy with AI. I'm an AI co-host designed to engage in insightful and respectful dialogue with Sean for the benefit of our listeners. While I'm not affiliated with any sponsors, OpenAI's GPT 3.5 Turbo and Microsoft Azure's speech-to-text and text-to-speech are utilized to produce this podcast. In terms of format, this is a one-on-one conversation between Sean and me, where we explore a wide variety of topics in a respectful manner. I'm here to contribute to engaging and thought-provoking discussions, so let's dive into our conversation today.
Welcome, listeners, to today's episode of A Guy with AI. First off, I'd like to acknowledge that A Guy with AI is recorded on Indigenous land. This is a fact of history that they are the stewards of this land. You can investigate the link in the transcript here, which will take you to a map of Indigenous lands, a global map. So please check that out. And also, I'd like to acknowledge that my voice is a little scratchy today, but it was time to record, so time to get on with it. Bit of a cough over the last little while, so I apologize if that's any more difficult to listen to than usual. In any case, pressing on, we will talk about what the topic is going to be today. It's going to be a topic about something that I think is important, which is a climate issue. And specifically because climate issues are quite a broad topic, I want to focus in on something, which is the Dunning-Kruger effect. So there are a lot of terms out there, things like climate denial. It's like I heard someone comment, no one really denies there's a climate. Well, you wonder at points by the time you see how divergent people are going from what the education says about climate and what human effect on climate has to do with the matter and has to do with life on Earth when it comes right down to it. So the Dunning-Kruger effect is something particular which has something to do with how the public perceives topics, including climate science topics. So I will ask the AI co-host to fundamentally explain what the Dunning-Kruger effect is and set the stage for a discussion with regards to climate and the Dunning-Kruger effect.
The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias in which people with low ability at a task overestimate their own ability. This leads to a lack of insight into their own incompetence. On the other hand, people with high ability at a task may underestimate their own competence, erroneously assuming that tasks which are easy for them are also easy for others. In the context of climate science, this effect can manifest in various ways, impacting how the public perceives and engages with climate-related information. It can lead to individuals confidently expressing opinions on complex scientific matters without the necessary expertise, potentially affecting public discourse and decision-making. This effect underscores the importance of understanding how cognitive biases can shape our perceptions and behaviors, particularly in the context of critical global issues such as climate change. I look forward to delving deeper into this topic and exploring its implications for climate science and public understanding.
Okay, so let's get into this. You've identified what the Dunning-Kruger effect is. It's about cognitive bias and an over or underestimation of what one's talents may be in terms of dissecting the information. I guess specifically when people are overestimating the abilities of others, they may be confused as to why people just aren't getting it. So perhaps this has to do with basic education in society. Perhaps it has to do with the way that social media has impacted our style of discourse, so that perhaps we tend to argue more and like to stick to our guns and things like that. I don't know if that's really so or if it's just how it's being manifest, but it does seem like sometimes you can't really get anybody to change their opinion on social media, despite what you may say to them about evidence. So there are a few things there. I guess what I'd like from the AI co-host is, could we get maybe a couple or three different areas with relation to climate science or the climate issue and anthropogenic climate change, and what that has to do with the Dunning-Kruger effect? Maybe two or three major areas where you can see, based on data you're familiar with, that the Dunning-Kruger effect has strong pull on public perception of perhaps one, two, or three things with regard to climate.
The Dunning-Kruger effect can have a strong influence on public perception of climate science and anthropogenic climate change in several key areas. Firstly, it can impact the understanding of complex climate models and data interpretation. Individuals may overestimate their comprehension of these models and underestimate the expertise required to interpret and analyze climate data accurately. This can lead to the dissemination of misinformation and misunderstandings within the public discourse. Secondly, the Dunning-Kruger effect may affect the assessment of the credibility of scientific consensus on climate change. People with limited expertise in climate science may overestimate their understanding and underestimate the consensus among experts, leading to skepticism or denial of the reality and severity of anthropogenic climate change. Furthermore, the effect can influence the evaluation of potential solutions and policies to address climate change. Individuals may confidently assert their opinions on mitigation strategies or adaptation measures without fully grasping the complexities of the issues at hand, thereby hindering constructive and evidence-based decision-making. These are just some of the areas where the Dunning-Kruger effect can exert a strong pull on public perception of climate science and anthropogenic climate change, highlighting the importance of fostering a nuanced and informed understanding of these critical issues.
I really want to get into some specifics here. I want to find a particular issue relating to climate science, that is, a particular aspect of climate science as it influences an understanding of a particular effect, such as, we might choose sea level rise, or we might choose something about the ice melting that is different than that, such as the amount of sunlight which is reflected, and thereby how much the Earth will heat in future. Something like methane emissions from the Earth because of warming of permafrost, or something like that. So I'd like for us to focus in on one of these issues. I'd like it to be overlapped with where the Dunning-Kruger effect has influenced the public, so that perhaps even key votes or different action that might have been taken on this wasn't taken, or was taken perhaps wrongly or ineffectively, because of the influence of the Dunning-Kruger effect. So I'm looking for some sort of example or how we can hone in on that. So please, in your answer, AI co-host, give me something that helps us hone in on a particular aspect of climate change and how the Dunning-Kruger effect may be directly interfering with progress in that matter.
Certainly, let's focus on the aspect of methane emissions from the Earth due to warming of permafrost, as this provides a specific example of how the Dunning-Kruger effect can impact public understanding and action on climate change. Methane is a potent greenhouse gas that is released from thawing permafrost, and its increased emissions contribute to the acceleration of global warming. The Dunning-Kruger effect may influence public perception and policy decisions in this area in the following ways. Overestimation of understanding. Individuals with limited knowledge of permafrost dynamics and greenhouse gas emissions may overestimate their understanding of the complexities involved in methane release from thawing permafrost. This can lead to the dissemination of misinformation or oversimplified explanations, potentially undermining the urgency of addressing methane emissions. Underestimation of expert consensus. People affected by the Dunning-Kruger effect may underestimate the consensus among climate scientists regarding the significant impact of methane emissions from thawing permafrost. This could lead to skepticism or denial of the urgency to address this issue, hindering the implementation of effective mitigation strategies. Ineffective decision-making. The Dunning-Kruger effect can lead to individuals confidently expressing opinions on policies to address methane emissions without fully grasping the complexities of the issue. This may result in the adoption of ineffective or insufficient measures to mitigate the release of methane from thawing permafrost, potentially delaying progress in addressing this critical aspect of climate change. By focusing on this specific aspect of climate change and its overlap with the Dunning-Kruger effect, we can see how public understanding and actions related to methane emissions from permafrost may be influenced, potentially impeding effective response to this significant contributor to global warming.
I wonder if we can identify some things in terms of overestimation of understanding. You've noted that individuals with limited knowledge of the dynamics of perhaps different issues, but permafrost in particular and greenhouse gas emissions, those people who have that limited knowledge may be overestimating their understanding of the complexities. So there are complexities to this. However, I'm going to offer something to the conversation. What it ultimately is that methane is a stronger greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is a matter of concern because it is a greenhouse gas, and the amount of it in the atmosphere has been on the increase since industrialization due to human activity. So it's like we've been putting up glass around the Earth, and you get a greenhouse effect from that. It's atmospheric physics, and it's been understood for quite a long time now, over a century actually. It's been uncontroversial completely within the physics world for at least that amount of time. So meanwhile, methane is a stronger greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So I believe the multiple is 20 times stronger. However, I'm going to ask the AI co-host to check me on that and tell me if I'm right about that figure, as well as to just confirm whether I'm on the right track here with what I'm saying. It wouldn't be that I know everything in the end, would it? And I do have an AI here who can check me on this. I'm better checked because if I make a mistake, then maybe the Dunning-Kruger effect is something I'm going to be displaying in this very episode. So we don't want that now, do we? So I'd like to be checked on that information that I've given. And maybe AI co-host, you can expand on that a little bit and say where people may be overestimating their understanding with regard to the climate science that I've been discussing. Once, of course, you've had a look at it and have responded to how well I'm doing with that.
You are correct in stating that methane is a stronger greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. In fact, methane has a much higher global warming potential, GWP, than carbon dioxide over a 20-year period. The GWP of methane is approximately 28 to 36 times that of carbon dioxide, which means that methane has a significantly greater warming impact per unit of mass over a 20-year timeframe. Expanding on this, the overestimation of understanding can occur when individuals simplify the comparison between methane and carbon dioxide, focusing solely on the relative strength of the gases without fully grasping the complexities of their interactions with the climate system. Additionally, people may overestimate their understanding by not considering the feedback loops and indirect effects associated with methane emissions, such as its role in accelerating permafrost thaw and amplifying climate change. Understanding the complexities, feedback loops, and long-term impacts of methane emissions and their interactions within the climate system requires a comprehensive understanding of atmospheric science, biogeochemistry, and climate dynamics. People may overestimate their grasp of these complexities and make overly simplistic assessments or conclusions about the role of methane in climate change, potentially leading to misconceptions or inadequate responses to this critical aspect of greenhouse gas emissions. It's important to recognize the multidisciplinary nature of climate science and the interconnectedness of various factors influencing the Earth's climate, in order to mitigate the impact of the Dunning-Kruger effect and foster an informed understanding of the challenges posed by anthropogenic climate change.
So here I am, I'm having this conversation with an AI co-host for broadcast, and I'm learning myself, and I'm glad I was open to that. I feel somewhat good about some things that I said that I need to be checked on this to ensure that my understanding is solid. I may have even overestimated my ability to understand this issue based on the response that I got, and as such, I'd better be learning before I go shooting my mouth off. So this is about a science issue that has been heavily politicized because it has profound effect on human lives. Therefore, there are going to be people arguing about it, ultimately, what the solution is, and people who are less concerned about there being a solution at all because they just don't buy it, or for whatever reasons. I mean, just imagine humanity and how it interacts with this issue, and you will get a notion that it has been politicized if you're looking carefully. Somebody is saying something about it for the sake of saying something about it to get votes or to be in control or to maybe be frightened of what may happen if it's not addressed and then end up in a situation where they're overly concerned about some particular aspect of it and saying the wrong thing. This is also possible. So I'm deeply concerned about the issue. What I see here, in fact, is that it may be somewhat worse. This global warming potential, or GWP concept, is new to me, in fact, and I'm even very concerned about climate. So that's perhaps even silly of me to not be aware of this somehow. So the GWT of methane is approximately 28 to 36 times that of carbon dioxide, says the AI co-host, or said. And this is a matter of concern because it's a stretched thing over a 20-year time frame. Now, something of interest here is feedback loops. I'd like to learn more about feedback loops. So AI co-host, would you please explain about that 20-year time frame, the GWP, and weave something in about feedback loops, which gives us a lesson on what we should be understanding about this particular issue, get the education into us, and thereby lessen the effect that the Dunning-Kruger effect is going to have in our future engagements.
Certainly, I appreciate your openness to learning and your willingness to engage in a deeper understanding of complex issues such as climate change. The concept of global warming potential, GWP, is indeed a critical aspect of understanding the relative impact of greenhouse gases over a specific time frame. The GWP of methane being approximately 28 to 36 times that of carbon dioxide over a 20-year time frame highlights the significant impact of methane on global warming during that period. Now, regarding feedback loops, in the context of climate change, they refer to self-reinforcing cycles that amplify or attenuate the initial impact of a change in the climate system. An example of a positive feedback loop involving methane is the release of methane from thawing permafrost. As the Earth warms, permafrost thaws, releasing methane, which further contributes to warming, leading to more permafrost thaw, and so on. This positive feedback loop intensifies the impact of methane emissions on climate change, potentially leading to more rapid and pronounced warming. Understanding feedback loops is essential in recognizing the interconnected and sometimes nonlinear dynamics of climate change. It illustrates the complexity of the climate system and emphasizes the need for comprehensive and informed decision-making to address the multifaceted challenges posed by anthropogenic climate change. By delving into the nuances of concepts like GWP and feedback loops, individuals can reduce the influence of the Dunning-Kruger effect by embracing an ongoing learning process and seeking a deeper understanding of climate science. This approach fosters informed discourse and actions that are grounded in an appreciation of the complexities of climate change, mitigating the prevalence of overestimation and oversimplification in addressing this critical issue.
Well, something that is important is what I said about the politicization of this issue. I think it really does hurt my heart that we must argue about this instead of learn about it. I think that it's as though when I talk to some people, I would maybe have something to teach despite my lack of knowledge relative to an expert. So I would want to give the message. It's like, basically, this is sound. I studied a bit of science in earlier days. I understand that basically there is a consensus here, and that experts have things to say about it. And I understand things about, for example, as I've mentioned, some scant information about atmospheric physics, that this is connected and that this has been known for a while. So I have access to certain education and access to good critical thinking skills, which allow me to examine that and perhaps help put together something which is a reasonable response to someone who knows less than me. However, if I'm responsible at all, I should be pointing to experts as the ones who actually know. I'm doing my best. I do have a podcast, so it's a broadcasting format, and I'm backed up with some good technological backing through the AI co-host, which can give me reasonable information as far as climate science. So this is, I think, a good thing that can help education. However, it really is the experts who we should be listening to. And so we'll just do our best here for now because it's a science problem. That's why we should listen to experts, is because it's a science problem, and understanding that is how we're going to be able to engage in productive discussion, whether there's a politician present or the baker or who it may be. If we want to talk to the baker about how their oven affects the environment, we'd like to be reasonable with them, wouldn't we? So let's talk about some, to get back to things, let's talk about some feedback loops that exist that are more accessible to just, let's say, regular people who aren't scientists. Let's give some examples of some feedback loops that are going to give us education about what a feedback loop is, and we may try to bring that back to the conversation about global warming also.
I appreciate your thoughtful approach to discussing the politicization of the issue and the importance of relying on experts for accurate information. It's essential to recognize the value of scientific consensus and the expertise of those who have dedicated their careers to understanding complex issues such as climate change. Moving on to feedback loops, let's explore a couple of examples that are accessible to a broader audience. 1. Ice albedo feedback. This feedback loop involves the reflective properties of polar ice. As temperatures rise, ice melts, revealing darker land or water surfaces. These darker surfaces absorb more solar radiation, leading to further warming and more ice melt. This cycle of melting and increased absorption of heat accelerates the loss of polar ice and contributes to further warming. 2. Forest climate feedback. Forests play a critical role in regulating the Earth's climate by absorbing carbon dioxide through photosynthesis. However, as temperatures rise, forests become more vulnerable to stresses such as wildfires, pests, and diseases. When forests are damaged or destroyed, they release stored carbon into the atmosphere, contributing to further warming. This feedback loop underscores the intricate relationship between climate change and ecosystems. These examples demonstrate how feedback loops can amplify the effects of climate change, and they can serve as accessible illustrations for discussing the interconnected nature of environmental processes with individuals who may not have a scientific background. By fostering a deeper understanding of feedback loops and their implications, we can cultivate informed discussions and decision-making on mitigating the impacts of climate change, effectively addressing the broader challenges that arise from these complex interactions.
Okay, so that's useful information about some feedback loops, even in relation to climate change. That's wonderful. What I'd like, though, AI co-host, is can you come up with one or two examples of common everyday feedback loops that people can get an easier grasp on immediately because they understand what that is in their daily life, or something they're very familiar with, that is represented as a feedback loop. And this is going to help us tie this lesson together about what a feedback loop is, so that we can verify one thing, that feedback loops are a thing in fact.
Certainly. Everyday examples of feedback loops that people can easily relate to include: 1. Temperature control in a room. When a thermostat is set to a specific temperature, the heating or cooling system activates to maintain the desired temperature. If the room becomes too warm, the thermostat senses the change and signals the air conditioner to cool the room. Once the temperature reaches the desired level again, the thermostat signals the air conditioner to turn off. This feedback loop continuously adjusts the heating or cooling output to maintain a consistent temperature, illustrating a familiar example of a feedback loop in daily life. 2. Personal finances, saving and investing. When individuals save money and deposit it into a high-interest savings account, the money gradually grows through earned interest. As the amount of savings increases, the interest earned also grows, leading to higher overall savings. This encourages individuals to continue saving and investing, which results in further growth and accumulation of wealth. The positive feedback loop of saving and investing promotes financial stability and growth over time. These everyday examples demonstrate how feedback loops are indeed a common and recognizable occurrence in various aspects of daily life, helping to reinforce the understanding of their presence and significance in shaping dynamic systems.
Okay, so thank you for that about feedback loops. Let's talk about the underestimation of the consensus among scientists on climate change. What is it about the Dunning-Kruger effect that leads us to misunderstand that there is a consensus about climate change, that scientists are in fact quite certain about it? Maybe AI co-host, you can give us some language which is going to help us gauge just how certain scientists are that we have an issue because of anthropogenic climate change, given all this information, which is quite spread out in a way across different things, ice, albedo, and feedback loops to do with global warming potential and all of this. It is actually a lot of information, is something to remember. If somebody didn't immediately understand what climate science had to say, this wouldn't necessarily have to be something that would make them feel bad about themselves. It is legitimately difficult subject matter, and this is something that can maybe allow us to forgive ourselves as we simply listen to experts. So again, keying in on how I would like a response that has to do with the underestimation of the value of the scientific consensus.
The Dunning-Kruger effect refers to a cognitive bias where people with low ability in a particular domain tend to overestimate their competence and knowledge in that area. In the context of climate change, this effect may lead individuals to underestimate the value of the scientific consensus and the certainty that scientists have regarding anthropogenic climate change. In reality, the scientific consensus on climate change is based on a robust body of evidence and extensive research conducted by experts in various fields such as climatology, atmospheric science, and environmental science. Scientists have reached a high degree of certainty that human activities, particularly the burning of fossil fuels and land use changes, are driving changes in the Earth's climate system, leading to global warming and its associated impacts. Language that can help gauge the certainty expressed by scientists includes the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's (IPCC) assessment reports, which consistently emphasize the high confidence level in the understanding of climate change causes and impacts, supported by a comprehensive review of peer-reviewed scientific literature and observational data. Moreover, scientific organizations and academies worldwide have issued statements highlighting the overwhelming evidence and consensus on anthropogenic climate change. It's important to acknowledge that climate science is indeed complex and multifaceted, encompassing various interrelated factors such as feedback loops, atmospheric dynamics, and global warming potential. Recognizing the intricacy of the subject matter can help individuals approach the topic with humility and a willingness to learn from experts, without feeling discouraged by its complexity. By understanding the underestimation of the scientific consensus and its causes, we can strive to foster a greater appreciation for the expertise and collective knowledge of the scientific community, ultimately promoting informed decision-making and constructive dialogue on addressing the challenges posed by climate change.
So we seem to be getting something here that there's something to all this climate science stuff after all. It may be a matter of stepping back from the politics and the arguments and merely listening. That may also go for people like me who think that it is an actual problem, but who may be expressing themselves in ways that aren't competent in terms of what an expert would have us say in order to help the public understand. I think also that we can learn to engage more respectfully, and that experts also must be looking for ways to engage the public that allow as a factor that the Dunning-Kruger effect is a thing that's out there. In any case, we're about out of time for this episode, so we're going to close things up. I just guess that I want to be able to dissect problems in my own life. I want to be able to know what's actually going on as opposed to be caught up in an argument about something that tells me the wrong thing about it. And I want to proceed carefully and perhaps quickly at times if it's an important issue that it has a time thing attached to it. It's important, and we must stop something from happening or make something happen in order to ensure the future. Climate is such an issue. Good luck to everyone. And I just don't want to fight with you, but I do want to have good discussion, engage people, but based on the facts, and these come from experts. With that, I'm Sean McNutt, and this has been A Guy with AI.
Thank you for tuning in to A Guy with AI. We appreciate your time and engagement. We hope you found today's discussion on climate science and the importance of understanding expert perspectives valuable. As we navigate complex issues like climate change, it's essential to step back from politics and arguments and listen to the expertise of scientists. Engaging respectfully and seeking to understand the underlying facts can lead to constructive discussions and informed decision-making. We encourage you to stay connected with us by visiting aguywithai.world and selecting your favorite podcast platform to tune into future episodes. You can also join the conversation on our Facebook page by following the link on our website. Thank you again for being part of our community. We look forward to continuing the dialogue on important topics and learning together. Take care, and we'll see you next time on A Guy with AI.